Do they start to get resentful that you're the writer, that you're the front man?
Yeah, I was like the cuckoo in the nest, you know. They didn't really know what they were taking on.
Yeah.
Sting is the kind of artist who can be a legend and a lightning rod at the same time. As the voice and bass of the Police, he helped define an era with lean, tense songs that still live on radio playlists and classic rock countdowns. Yet the band's offstage reputation has always been just as loud as the music, with stories of factions forming early, studio sessions turning hostile, and friendships fraying as fame exploded. From buried tapes and bruised ribs to modern courtroom fights over songwriting credit, the same question keeps resurfacing. What was it like to be Sting's bandmate? Today we're unpacking why Sting's closest collaborators have often sounded like they utterly hated him. The early lineup and the first power move.
We were actually a little too like a family in that it was almost sibling rivalry, and I think families fight much more bitterly than just workmates. It was more to it than that. It was quite vicious.
Because when we come into Visions of the Night, it's bling, like 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, right, exactly. You asshole! It's not
In 1977, drummer Stuart Copeland put together a new band in London with guitarist Henry Padovani, then brought in Gordon Sumner, soon to be known as Sting. Sting arrived with a jazz background and had to reshape his instincts fast. The Police were built on reinvention, and reinvention creates winners and losers inside the room. That tension spiked when Sting invited guitarist Andy Summers to join. Padovani later described the atmosphere as two camps, with Copeland and Padovani on one side and Sting and Summers on the other, both pulling the music in different directions. Once that split formed, the band was no longer just trying to get gigs. They were also trying to control the identity of the group. Padovani was the first member pushed out, and Sting did the firing. Copeland did not agree with it, which matters because it planted an early lesson. If Sting believed the sound needed to change, he was willing to cut a bandmate loose, even when feelings were raw. That set a template for later conflict. Instead of endless debate with equal votes, the band could tip toward the person writing the songs and steering the direction. The Police would soon become a global act, but their internal politics already had stress points. When a democracy starts feeling like a dictatorship.
It's sort of hard to deal with that from my point of view.
Deal with what?
To
deal with this.
To do with an interview.
We're like this all the time, you know.
This is it.
We'd be like
This is
this
what you
tomorrow.
get.
But at the moment, I want to have a fight.
Yeah.
Much better television
do?
than the questions. I promise you.
Okay.
I tell you what, should we film me whooping Sting?
Yes,
That would be good, wouldn't
that
it?
would be great.
Let's go!
That's that.
Okay, hit the chorus, let's get out of here!
Did I think he was a scumbag? Yes.
I mean, we had, fist fights. And we were like brothers, and we just fought tooth and nail.
When Summers joined, he brought a wider musical vocabulary that changed the band's sound. He has said Sting had the ears for those ideas, which helps explain why their partnership worked so well on record. While the band was still active, Summers and Copeland often spoke diplomatically in interviews. They admitted they were different personalities, but they also praised Sting's songwriting because it was hard to argue with the results. A song like Every Little Thing She Does Is Magic did not leave much room for polite disagreement. Behind that public calm, the biggest pressure point was authorship. Sting wrote the lyrics, chords, and melody for most of the Police's major singles, and he later said songwriting was the main problem because everyone wanted to be a songwriter. In a band, publishing is not just pride, it's money, control, and permanence. As the catalog grew, songwriting versus arranging became a battle line. If Sting saw himself as the writer and everyone else as the band, then guitar hooks and drum parts could feel undervalued. That's the kind of setup where resentment builds and explodes when someone feels dismissed. Behind My Camel and the studio Sabotage stories.
He's really very difficult to understand. I suppose his history has been recounted many times. You know, books have been written, movies have been filmed.
In the interview that you did in New York the day after the Madison Square Garden concert, they more or less said that you were going to sort of not quit the group, but spend a fair time away from the group. Well, this article said this. And said
Sting is quitting the group, it's I'm quitting the group.
Oh, right, and you were going to go into a film career.
Three of us are quitting the group.
Well, wait a minute. One of us, I'm quitting first.
Got to stay first.
I'm quitting first. If I'm gonna quit right now.
Hold on.
Anyhow.
We need to get a little bit of synchronicity here, if I may be so honest.
Synchronicity has nothing to do with order. It's more to do with chaos. It doesn't mean anything, Sting.
The clearest snapshot of their bad chemistry might be the Behind My Camel saga from Zenyatta Mondatta. Summers wrote the instrumental, and Sting refused to play on the track. Summers recorded the bass part himself, which is already a sign that collaboration had limits. Then Sting described what happened to the tape in a way that turned a dispute into a myth. He said, quote, "I hated that song so much that one day when I was in the studio, I found the tape lying on the table. So I took it around the back of the studio and actually buried it in the garden." That's not normal band bickering, that's contempt with dirt under its fingernails. The irony is that the song later won a Grammy for Best Rock Instrumental Performance, which made Summers look vindicated. Moments like that can harden the story each person tells themselves and make the next disagreement harsher. That's why the Police's conflicts are easy to believe when people describe them. When a bandmate is willing to hide a recording, it suggests the fights were not only about sound, they were also about respect, and respect disappears fast in a long studio war. Synchronicity and the breaking point.
We didn't officially break up, Howard.
Right.
You're still together?
I just thought it was time that I exercised my right to make a solo album, as the others had done.
Right.
And then that was a massive hit.
Right.
And so I went, hang on a minute.
Never say never.
No, never say never, but here's what you can say. Andy, Sting, you're fired!
I'm
not fired. You're fired.
Copeland's memories are even sharper. He's described being in the band as hell on earth, and he aimed much of that frustration at Sting's controlling nature. He explained his darkest moments in one blunt line. Quote, "The times when I came the closest to homicide, the times when it became absolutely critical that I choked the life out of this man, were when he would come over to me and tell me something about the hi-hat." The tension was not only verbal. Before an August 1983 show at Shea Stadium, what started as horsing around reportedly ended with Copeland cracking Sting's ribs during a scuffle over a copy of the New York Times. It sounds ridiculous until you remember the exhaustion. Copeland has also said Sting had a very clear idea of how arrangements should go, and that what began as a collaboration turned into something Sting struggled to compromise on. If you feel micromanaged in a band, you start hearing every note as someone else's decision. The modern fights, the reunion truce, and the money question.
We resonate as human beings, all of us. We're resonating right now. You and I resonate.
In our way.
Sometimes.
So you don't want it to continue anymore.
Well,
now you want something different.
you know, it's hard to, without writing it all down, all I want is the bass drum. That's what I want to hear on 2.
That's going to be fucking cover of Modern Drummer magazine is going to be fucking devoted to that drum fill, you cunt.
It's amazing that you could play that drum fill in 9 beats.
Right? Just because it's a little confusing for the fucking bass playing element. Okay?
It's going so well, too.
Years later, I did have to come to the realization, and don't tell him I said this, but that fucker's a genius.
Even decades after the breakup, the tension has not completely gone away. Summers softened his tone in later years, saying, quote, "I really believe that at the end of the day, there's great love and brotherhood between us because we all experienced something quite incredible." He still called Sting a gifted artist and a great musician, which shows the story is not pure hatred. But there's a reason the every breath you take argument keeps flaring up. Summers has said his guitar part is what made the track, and he's hinted at legal action over songwriting credit. In 2025, Summers and Copeland sued Sting in London High Court over claims tied to credit and publishing money, turning an old grudge into a formal fight. The money side matters more now than it did when albums sold endlessly. In 2022, Sting sold the rights to his songwriting catalog, including his Police work, to Universal Music Group for an estimated $250 million. A deal that large can make old bandmates feel the final score has been posted. At the same time, there are signs the temperature drops when the pressure drops. Copeland joked that his 2021 orchestral project, Police Deranged for Orchestra, was revenge. Yet he also said Sting liked people covering his songs and called the songs perfect. After the 2007 and 2008 reunion tour, Copeland has said they get along well now because they have no reason to fight anymore. Now it's time to hear from you. When you hear these stories about buried tapes, broken ribs, and court battles over credits, do you think Sting was simply the strongest leader in the room, or the kind of bandmate who was impossible to live with?